have 5 hives myself until the flood washed them away and burned it, sadly. But someday I'll get them going again. But bee hemp, again, showing the extreme versatility of the plant. I also want to show you, what's that, Jamie? We have State Representative Randy Fisher who's joined us, been a great champion of hemp down in the state legislature. Update. This very flag here, and some of you probably know, some of the very first American flags that were flown, sewn by Betsy Ross and others, were made from American hemp. This flag is made from hemp as well. We flew this very flag on top of the United States Capitol on July 4th. Probably, they don't really keep records of what all the flags that are flown are made of, but we're guessing it was the first time in at least half a century that a flag flown from American hemp was flown on the top of the United States Capitol. We're very excited to do that this very July 4th. As many of you know, there's a number of states that are moving forward with initiatives in industrial hemp, including California, Kentucky, Colorado, Washington, a number of other states. We are poised here in Colorado and have a unique opportunity to have a leadership role in a fast-growing industry. Of course, as many of you know, today the American hemp market is required to import all of their products from other countries, and Canada and other countries. You'll hear from Eric and others about what they do. But as we can grow additional opportunities for farmers here, you hear about some of the new rules that Colorado has, the Department of Agriculture. In Kentucky, they elect their agriculture commissioner, and they had a guy that really ran on this platform, and he won his Republican primary in the seat based on expanding opportunities for farmers and industrial hemp in Kentucky. And he was able to bring Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul on board, which has helped tremendously at our efforts nationally, which we'll talk a little bit about later as well. We were able to get included in the Farm Bill language that will specifically allow hemp production. But we have a unique opportunity in Colorado around several opportunities. One, with the premier land grant and state ag research university right here in CSU, the intellectual property. You can again see a crop that has essentially been frozen in time in terms of the technology. You look at the enormous gains in productivity in wheat and corn and all those crops that have been developed in the latter part of the 20th century. You have with industrial hemp a crop that was essentially frozen in the 1950s. And so you're going to have rapid gains in productivity in that first decade of research. And we would love to own and spin off some of that intellectual property right here in Fort Collins. Now, there are also great opportunities for farmers, but even beyond that, moving to all the other jobs that surround the industry, whether it's consumer products and marketing, health products. We have some health parts there, as you know, the essential oils that are in the hemp seeds are a healthy nutritional supplement that many Americans take, comparable in some ways to flax seeds and other form of seed. The apparel industry and the clothing industry, paper industry, many other consumer products that we will be excited to have companies here in northern Colorado. So we're hoping you'll learn from our panelists here today. Some of you in the audience might be would-be entrepreneurs yourself. Some might have already launched your ventures, as Bo has, and we have a great resource of people here. They're each going to present for a few minutes, and then we're going to go to your questions. See what you'd like to know to make sure that you have the facts and help share with your friends and neighbors the opportunities that we have for job creation, for reducing our trade deficit in the United States, for actually becoming a net exporter rather than a net importer, and for creating jobs across the supply chain, from consumer products to agriculture to ag tech with industrial hemp right here in northern Colorado. So I think we'll go in the order that they're sitting here. So this is a product which I'll personally vouch for. I've been using it since I was a little kid. I mean, we always grew up with Dr. Bronner's. They even have a great movie about the life of the founder of Dr. Bronner's, which you can find on Amazon or maybe even download. And it's a wonderful natural soap product, essentially. So as I said, I'm reasonably clean, and I've been using it since I was a kid, so it works. And with that, we'll go to Eric, who represents Dr. Bronner's, also a large consumer. They put a lot of hemp oils in their soaps, and again, they have to import those from other countries, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. Eric?
So thanks for having us here. Dr. Bronner's, we've been around for 65 years. We're the #1 organic selling soap in America. A lot of people that don't know us come to find out about us and love us is we do all our efforts in activism. That's one of the reasons we're very involved in this project, separate from our own hemp needs, just because we are an activist-based company and do like to support good progressive things. We are one of the largest importers of hemp oil for body care products. We import 100 tons a year of hemp oil from Manitoba, Canada. And what's currently going on is that supply is dwindling greatly for our resource because one, our soaps are of course growing in popularity, our company is growing. But another huge thing is the boom among the baby boomers with hemp seeds, perfect omega-3 and omega-6 chain. So it's a wonderful digestible protein, vegan choice as well, and people that are being more health conscious about their food have really caught on to this, to the point that just about any major company you can think of that supplies food in America pretty much talked to Manitoba. 10 years ago, they'll tell you people weren't contacting them at all. Now they can tell you they have every large name company saying, how can we get some hemp seeds? We want to add hemp to our products. It's obviously a huge boom and buzz in the health food industry as well for that reason. So that is where we get all of our, most of the seed and oil does come from Manitoba, Canada. Fibers do come from mostly China, which Barbara will probably speak a lot about. But last year, $550 million worth of hemp products were sold in the United States, none of which were grown here. So there's a huge opportunity just sitting there for that as well, for us to be forerunners in Colorado, for farmers to take a step towards, some acts of civil disobedience to kind of push this thing forward and say that we're awake and aware of what these products are. They're not drug related. These are things that are heritage crops, that things Thomas Jefferson, George Washington grew. We have a rich history of hemp in our country, and people already know that and embrace it. We're intellectually aware of it. That's why so many people are embracing the products across the country, and why it's really is a boom. You can see I have some different things to show here. Twine, one of the strongest natural fibers that you can have is hemp, so it's wonderful for cordage. A lot of people talk about this was one of the main reasons because as DuPont came into its patents in the 30s, they lobbied hardcore along with the paper industry to push hemp out because they didn't want all the success that you can get in paper. And at that time, everything in shipping and all the major cores were made of hemp. DuPont came out with synthetic nylons and really wanted to get their main competition out of the way. And it worked because they were able to coattail it on to the cannabis movement at the time, or the prohibition of cannabis. And now today we've done that kind of in reverse in Colorado. Dr. Bonner's is a supporter of the cannabis movement as well, but we are able to coattail our main concern, which is hemp, into getting a movement going here in Colorado. We also know of other states that are progressive that you're probably talked about that are in neck with us, that know the potential of bringing this product to market and how quick it can be sold for the farmers, and what a huge opportunity it is. So I got some other things to show, just some of the hempcrete, cordage, and clothing, which is getting to be extremely popular, as well as hemp products. 25% of our pesticides are used towards cotton farming, so it's a huge concern about sustainable farming and organics, because hemp can be grown easily organically. We can dig into that area of the market with clothing, which is just huge in itself. We really feel like a lot of the times, once we have supply on these products, it's just going to grow this market huger and huger, especially because Manitoba is actually wavering now. There's concerns with their supply shortage, that they have so many people coming to them. They're trying to honor their relationships with people that have been there from the beginning. But we really feel like Colorado farmers will be able to get this stuff directly sold quickly after their harvesting processing. So,
thank you, Eric, for giving us that background. As you know, on the kind of macro level, kind of as an introduction, hemp was caught up in this whole drug war thing, even though it has a negligible content of any type of substance that anybody would want to ban. We had this debate actually in the House, or the floor of the House, where I sponsored a successful amendment to the Farm Bill with Thomas Massey of Kentucky, where we specifically allowed for production of industrial hemp, where the back and forth was about how part of the opposition says, oh, it looks like marijuana, which they look similar, But it's not too difficult through a selective breeding program or through crop development to come up with particular ways that they look so that they can be easily spotted. So you can't disguise a marijuana crop as a hemp crop, which is a number of reasons you can't do anyway, because they would cross-fertilize and would water down the marijuana and wouldn't work to grow the two together. The regulatory systems for both are totally separate. Now, Colorado happens to have legalized both, but marijuana is very tightly regulated. You cannot just grow it. I mean, you can personally grow some in your home, but I mean, you cannot just plant a crop of it. It's very tightly regulated to market, keeping it out of the hands of minors, only allowing this controlled substance, just like alcohol is. Industrial hemp would be regulated, and the Department of Agriculture will talk about this, more like an industrial crop. So again, we want to have the concern to make sure it's not any kind of front for any kind of marijuana production. But absent that, it's a lot more like corn or wheat than it is like a regulated, intensely regulated marijuana production. So from that, we're going to go to Barb. Barbara Philippone is with Enviro Textiles, another leading industrial hemp company. Barbara?
Yes, if you don't mind, I'm going to sit.
Go ahead.
I'm exhausted and I'm losing my voice. There's a lot of subjects I'd like to speak about. What I do is go into countries, work from field to fabric, or field to finished product. And one of the reasons I'm here to participate is I'm seeing something similar that happened in Canada many, many, many years ago. And we're all excited about growing hemp, but what's critical this time around is that a multi-purpose crop is planted, and it's planted correctly. Now, we see a lot of farmers excited. That happened in Canada, but there was no infrastructure built, and the infrastructure has to be dispersed. And what I'm seeing in the United States is our farmers, let's use the analogy of cotton. If you're going to grow cotton, the cotton farmer is going to harvest the cotton. He's not going to gin it. So I am being bombarded by farmers saying, well, where do I get a hoeing machine? Where do I get this? What it is a vertical supply chain which has been created in many countries. And I'm going to give everyone a chance to ask a question if it's possible. But this area between Wyoming and our border, we have what's called a logistics that outbeats anyone in the country. We have train systems. We have the interstate highway system, which gives special rates because of where we're located. Now, on the farmers, the most important thing is the infrastructure you need. And we also have to consider your farmers' insurance, your subsidies. So at this point, the farmer's job will be to grow a multi-purpose crop. Now the herd, we have a use for herd, but your transport costs have to be considered so the farm level can process with an investment of, I can't disclose too much, but I have a plan for everyone so it's affordable. The farmer is going to process the herd, which consolidates it and lowers your logistics cost to a central processing. Now, the model on the western slope is designed. On the front range, it's easy. So, as a farmer, it's not going to be as intense as you think, and your investments. And so, and also I prepared for this by opening a company in order to provide a supply chain for harvesting pollen. And are my 4 minutes up?
We'll get more into the questions, but I think the key point that's very important is these are all opportunities. So it's not just farming opportunities. There are infrastructure, there are processing opportunities, there are logistics and transportation opportunities. So these are all kinds of opportunities that are emerging from this, not just for farmers, although that's certainly part of it. So next we have Eric Hunter from the Rocky Mountain Hemp Association. Eric?
All right, so a course, like any other business, industrial hemp will be driven by economics. So what we see here, using the numbers from Canada, an oilseed processing plant that produces 35,000 gallons per year of hemp seed oil will require a capital investment of $1 million, and annual sales are expected to be about $10 million from one of those plants. A fiber processing plant that processes 5 tons per hour, 36,000 tons per year, will require a capital investment of $3.7 million and will give an annual profit of $1.9 million. And that's for producing technical fibers like you might see in Mercedes and horse bedding, essentially a decortication facility. That doesn't include a textile out of that. Current Canadian production is around 55,000 acres, and from that they get about 20,000 tons per year of seeds and 130,000 tons per year of straw, most of which doesn't get utilized. European production is 37,000 acres, and out of that they get 7,300 tons per year of seeds and 84,000 tons per year of straw. And they use a dual crop system whereby they are able to utilize the straw efficiently. They also have a better infrastructure, which is what Barb was alluding to, where they can make use of it, which is essential if we're going to build this industry, to not only have an infrastructure, but also for everyone to work at the retail level to expand the market for hemp products. And they also, in Europe, use the flowers for making perfumes, body care products, and also for medicinal products. So they use about 8.2 tons per year of the flowers. In China, 49,000 acres is cultivated primarily for fiber use, for use with.
A lot more than that.
Okay, so Envirotextiles makes use of a lot of the Chinese hemp.
Hard to get statistics out of China sometimes.
It is, yeah. Barb probably has better statistics than me. That's one figure that you can use. But the value of imports has grown from about 2.5 million in 2000 to about 11.2 million in 2011, and that's just the raw product. Now, we take that $11 million per year of imports and turn that into $550 million at the retail level. So you see there's a magnifying effect that takes place when retail works with the raw materials and upgrades it to useful product. Now, the returns per acre, and this data comes from the University of Kentucky study, which I encourage you to check out online. It's very comprehensive. The farmer will yield anywhere from $300 to $500 per acre. And then the study also talks about how we could build the textile industry. They use 3 examples, large, medium, and small, which is based on the textile producers in Vermont. And for these cases, estimated sales for a large fiber plant would be in the order of $5.8 million a year, which translates to $2.5 million per year in worker wages. And also in the Kentucky study, they quoted this article from the Journal of Textile and Apparel, who talks about different farm sizes. We have large, medium, and small. And total sales from a large facility seed stock would be $1.6 million per year and would employ 41 people on that farm. So
terrific. And I'm sure many of you can't read that, so after our panelists are done, I would encourage you to come up and look at the numbers. I think many of our panelists will also be able to stay afterwards. I will for a little bit as well. Part of what we're hoping happens is informal networking questions, and you can go right to the person that you want to talk to, and you can, rather than squint, you can walk up to that and look at those different projections that was kind enough to put together. So thank you for putting that together. And now with Rocky Mountain Hemp Inc., we have Ryan Law.
Thank you.
Very good financial modeling, and that'll help, obviously, I think, attract the capital. And obviously, part of what we need to do is make sure that the capital flows work, and that those are all look like very good investments. Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Polis. My name is Ryan Laughlin, and I'm creating a company called Rocky Mountain Hemp. And I'm a Colorado farmer that's planted 60 acres this year, and we were able to harvest and process that as well. So, next phase of, of our business is seed development. That's kind of the whole point of this year was just to develop seed and to develop different cultivars that are really going to work in Colorado's climate and just really, take over, the soil, the conditions, and everything that's involved with that. So, we're working towards, seed development by the way of, doing greenhouse builds where we can, isolate different strains and really work on different cultivars. And, we're really, my farm is down in southwest Colorado, and that's really where I'm trying to bring the industry to be centered, down there. It's really located within 60 miles of 4 other major ag-producing states. That, once this thing is rolling, I want to do it before we get in, Texas, basically, Kansas, and Oklahoma, and all these different states. So I want to bring this industry to my little small town that I grew up in, because it's hurting. It needs a sustainable industry to really, bring things around. And there's countless products. I've had so many people contact me for things that you've never even, like beer. People want to make beer from the leaf, teas. I'm talking things that are just out of the ordinary, not things that are on the on the table right now. But there's just so much opportunity with this crop. This is not just seed for food or for fuel. It's seed, fuel, fiber, housing, food, pharmacy. You can just go down the list. It just goes and goes. So that's kind of and it's all about creating American jobs. Bottom line, it's farming creates jobs. In the small town, it is trickle down. When farmers do well, everybody in the community does well, and that's just how farming is. And Colorado is an ag state, and we need to accept that and really embrace our the other half of the state that really feeds this half of the state, so to speak. Because a lot of cattle are in this state, and a lot of farmers feed cattle, and we can multi-crop this crop and feed cattle and feed people all at the same time, and fuel our vehicles and build houses. So it's just, it preaches the choir, but it's a crop that's a good crop for sure. So.
Anything you learned interesting in your first year?
Yeah, there's a lot. It's short time, but I definitely would ask if anyone has any specific questions I can answer, specifically to the problem.
Thank you. In Washington, D.C. was that last week? Last week, he got honored by the Hemp Association. They also honored me as their Legislator of the Year, which was very exciting. There's a lot of interest in Ryan's story as a, a farmer of several generations.
Yeah, fourth
generation farmer looking to revitalize his area of the state. And I would add that Northern Colorado CSU has a strong role to play in that. And while it's going to be great for production areas like southeastern Colorado, the way the agriculture economy works, a lot of that great research and enabling and logistics will, I think, come right here out of northern Colorado. So we have two folks from the Colorado Department of Agriculture, which is doing a terrific job in their rules under Commissioner Salazar, former colleague of mine, I've known Ron for many years as well. Working hard to ensure that Colorado has the very best and easiest to work with rules in place with regard to industrial hemp production, that they work collaboratively with farmers across the state to come up with. And Laura and Ron are going to share 6 minutes to talk about their efforts in the Department of Agriculture. I have to be tough with this because this is, I want to make sure we get the questions. So go ahead.
Well, I'm the Deputy Commissioner of Agriculture for Colorado, and we were given the responsibility for regulating industrial hemp. And that authority comes from SB 241, which was enacted into law this past legislative session. And in fact, one of the sponsors was Representative Fisher, who is here today. And this legislation did essentially three things. One is that it delegated the regulatory authority to the Colorado Department of Agriculture. Secondly, it laid out a fairly specific list of things that needed to be part of a registration and inspection program. And then thirdly, it created an industrial hemp advisory committee. And Representative Fisher is chair of the House Ag Committee, along with Senator Gail Schwartz, who is chair of the Senate Ag Committee, named the members. We met 3 times over the latter part of the summer and hammered out some draft rules. We took those draft rules to public comment, published them, and held a hearing. Then we took them to our Ag Commission, which had the final say. They've approved these rules, so they will take effect. And Laura Podorf is going to be our industrial hemp program manager. And she's going to go over a little more detail as to what the rules are going to look like and the types of things that you'll have to do if you want to grow industrial hemp in Colorado. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Laura for the meaty stuff.
All right, so if any of you are interested in registering and growing the crop this spring, we will be working very closely together, so you'll need to contact me. So we had some very strict guidelines to kind of go by when we developed the rules with the help of our advisory committee. The standard that we have to meet, so by definition in the legislation, the definition of industrial hemp is cannabis species that has a THC content of 0.3% or less. So that is something that we have to abide by and work with. When you're ready to register, you will be ready for you March 1st. That's our deadline we were given by the legislature. So we'll be ready for you March 1, and you will need to tell me and give me a lot of documentation regarding whether you're going to be commercial or research and development. And we will have 2 different fees, registration fees, depending upon what your business is going to address. And the fees are going to be, if you're R&D, you are limited to 10 acres or less. If you're commercial, you are not limited to the amount of acreage that you can grow. So if you're R&D, the registration fee would be $100 plus $5 an acre. And we'll work it out for square footage, because I know some of you will have smaller areas. If you are going to be commercial, the registration fee will be about $200 per, and then $1 per acre on top of that. Part of what we're going to need when you register is the location of the growing area, including GPS readings. We need that. We will be sampling and doing field inspections in the summer so that we can verify that the crop you're growing meets the 0.3% THC limit that we have to enforce. So we will be sampling. So as I said, if you're going to register, we will be working very closely together so that I can determine when the proper time for our inspection and collection of samples is going to be. The Department of Ag Biochemistry Lab will be the lab that will run these samples. So we will not be using a private lab. We will be using our in-house lab. It will be consistent that way, and it will be enforceable that way. That's why we chose to go that direction. You will need, if you are selected for sampling, you will need to pay for the inspection time and the sampling time, as well as the lab costs, because the legislature dictated that this has to be a self-funding program. So that's the way that's going to be. We do have a waiver provision, and so what we came up with through a lot of research is that if your crop tests between the 0.3 and 1% THC, we will be working with you to determine what's going to happen with that crop. It cannot be sold if it is higher than 0.3, but we will be working with you to determine the best course of action for a crop that falls within the waiver period. You will not lose your registration. So that I will stop.
Thank you, and I think what will hopefully happen again, we'll get that, we see at CSU at the end, with crop research is they'll be able to more reliably deliver production below 0.3%. understanding in the first few years, and I'm glad you're showing some flexibility that certainly through no fault of their own, it's possible that something coming a little behind, but that shouldn't be a problem in 10 years, or really even 5 years, because there's a lot of work to do with this crop to consistently deliver negligible content of THCs, which won't be too hard.
Use
from a
right
lot of
genetics
standpoint.
and
It just has to
don't
be
make mistakes.
done over the next few years. But appreciate your guys' work on this and looking at embracing this crop, and I'm sure we'll hopefully find a way also where the fees won't be too onerous on small producers, and maybe eventually
I
there'll
think
be
the
enough
testing should
revenue
be paid
from
for
the
the
overall
fees.
production that there won't have to be fees for testing. I'm sure there's a lot of
Why
things that
third-party
you're
testing?
looking at. It's always very challenging to get something new off the ground. So
Biggest
next
question
we
here is
have
what about the feds?
researcher from Colorado
You guys
State
can make all the
University,
rules you
Dr.
want,
Dan
but
Bush.
the feds
Welcome
got
down.
upper hand.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
R&D
I guess
crops are the only
what I
thing
might
that's
speak
gonna
to
make it
is
happen.
not what CSU is doing right now in this field, but what it potentially can do. As a land grant institution, I'm sure you're all aware, and many of you are farmers, you know what kind of outreach we have with the extension and basic research for agriculture, both seed development, germplasm development, things like that, for many of the crops that are already grown here in Colorado. We have, I think, about 19 extension offices. So, for example, if you want to develop germplasm that is productive and meets the environmental conditions where you are, whether it's the southeast or northeast, we have extension centers where we can test different varieties to see how well they grow. Now, this potential, this intellectual capacity we have at CSU as a land grant, agriculture university is there, and we have a lot of know-how. Right now, we don't have a footprint in the hemp business, and frankly, we can't have a footprint in the hemp business until legislation is passed in Congress to remove it from a restricted crop. At CSU, I think you're all aware, we're a research institution. We do a lot of agriculture research, but we do a lot of research on a variety of topics. We get on the order of about $300 million worth of grants from federal agencies every year to support our research activities across a wide spectrum of areas. We can't afford to put that kind of cash flow at risk by jumping into something that we don't have the appropriate legislative freedom to do. So we have the capacity to help, we have the know-how to develop germplasm, and certainly Brian's comments, Eric's, clearly there's a lot of genetic diversity out there with hemp. There's a lot of potential to do breeding programs, to develop higher levels of seed yield, higher levels of fiber, different kinds of fiber. But to do that, you need breeding programs, you need the capacity to put those things out. And hopefully in the future, as you grow the industry, CSU will be a willing partner helping to help you out.
Thank you.
Awesome.
The good news, Dr. Bush, is that we expect that this will occur through the Fourm bill in the coming months. The language is in the House passed version. The Senate's on board. They're actually looking at even expanding it. But we expect, never underestimate the dysfunction of Congress. It's possible there will be a farm bill. But if there's any kind of farm bill, I think this will be in it. And so hopefully we'll be able to get kind of a good running start at CSU, given the interest in the community and the state regs, which I think are ahead of many other states. So I think it's a good environment to foster that intellectual property development. Last but certainly not least, from the United Food and Commercial Workers, we have Samantha Walsh. Welcome.
Thanks. For those who don't know me, there's actually a good portion of the room who do know me. My name's Samantha Walsh. I was a lobbyist that helped push through the hemp bill this session, and a lot of my clients are up here today, and I'm so happy to see them making progress and pushing this industry forward. I could give you a little bit of history on the hemp bill, but I think what I'm going to talk about now is what we're going to do next session. So next session, we're looking forward to working with counties, more small business owners and farmers about how do we incentivize production? How do we get now the manufacturers and the producers to financially be able to spur this economy forward? One of the things we're talking about is a use tax credit for hemp producers, particularly in the hemp building materials arena. That's where we see this is going to be a large chunk of the market. Hemp's a very bio-friendly material. It's energy efficient. It's fire resistant. It's mold and pest resistant. We want to hope to be able to capture on the fire resistance capacity of it, and hopefully, offer up tax credits or tax incentives for those who purchase homes or create building materials made from this, because obviously our state has seen a fair share of devastation recently due to fire damage. And so one of the things we're looking at is, well, what can we do if we were able to mitigate that structure loss? You know, there was a home, the reason this came about was there was a home down in Colorado Springs that was able to avoid any destruction from the Waldo Canyon fire because it was just painted with fire-resistant paint. And I can only imagine if there was something that was made with hempcrete or the hemp building materials, which is fire-resistant, how much structure damage we could have saved, how much property loss we could have, avoided. And so that's one of the things we want to help. And at the same time, being able to, spur economic growth in the session. We're also looking at an income tax credit for people who are purchasing these bio-friendly homes or building homes out of bio-friendly materials, similar to what you would see when you purchase a hybrid car, when they're trying to reduce, carbon emissions and things like that. The legislature put together a bill last year that allowed for people to deduct, the purchase of a hybrid car a little bit from their income tax. So, those are a couple of things we're looking for. And of course, I'm always open to ideas. This is my pet project. I love doing this, and so anything we can do to spur this. I will tell you that the hemp bill passed unanimously through the Senate and the House. And there was one no vote. One no vote was from Senator Lumberg. He felt it was too regulated. So, and there may be some people who feel that it is regulated. I would stipulate that until we can work on this on a federal level, we do sort of need that necessary oversight, if only because, even when I was working with this at the legislature, the first thing the AG said to me is, well, people are going to hide marijuana plants in their hemp fields. And of course, it's a difficult mentality to overcome. So, this is still a fight. It's still a work in progress, and we're going to continue to make these regulations better. We're going to continue to push this economy forward. And it's been a pleasure to work with Congressman Polis' office as well on some of the things he's been working on, and everyone in this room, and thank you for your time.
Before we get going, I want to go to Representative Randy Fisher, if you wanted to talk about the advisory commission and, your legislative work at the state level for a couple minutes.
Thank you, Congressman. I really appreciate it. And first of all, I just want to extend my gratitude to you for hosting this forum. I think it's really great that your leadership on this issue means a lot to folks in this community. It was many of the constituents here in Fort Collins that made me aware for the first time several years ago about the importance of industrial hemp, and so it was just a real honor for me to work with Gail Schwartz and some other folks in the legislature. Samantha was a huge help, as well as Eric and others. And anyway, just wanted to let you all know that this is kind of an organic process that's definitely got a lot of support here in Fort Collins, and really appreciate my constituents here that have helped make me aware of what's happening here. I don't want to take up any time, but it was an honor to be able to appoint the first hemp advisory committee here, and I'm glad to hear that process has worked well, and we're looking forward to continuing to push this to advance the issue forward. And so with your leadership, I think I see great things happening with industrial hemp here in Colorado. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative. So we'll go to questions, and it would be great if you want to direct them to one or two panelists. That way we can get through as many questions as possible. I'm sure you have a lot in your mind. We'd love to hear it. So, yes.
I'm so sorry, I forgot your name already, but we'll be working together with the Agriculture Department.
Agriculture Department, okay.
Now, I just want to clarify a few things. Oh, Laura.
Laura,
You are just testing the seed, correct? Or
No.
what part of are you going to be testing? What the intended uses of the products? Or
No, we're following Canada's protocol. So we plan on testing the flowers. That's where the highest level of THC is. Now, if you do not let the plant go to flower, if there's some other intended use, we will test whatever your final product is. But if you let that plant go to flower, that's what we're going to test.
Okay, interesting. Because I know a lot of people right now, the ones that do have UVC, first generation Colorado seeds now have been testing our seeds, because that's what we plan on using. So I guess that's the answer. Is there any room for discussion further with that on the
Of how we test?
committee? Yeah.
Not, there's input,
Okay.
but we have to be consistent, and we have to follow protocols that other countries follow, because if the channels for import and export are opened, we all have to be speaking the same language, and we all have to have the same process that we have tested, so we have consistent numbers.
Okay, one last question. Like, do you have an idea what the testing lab fees that you guys are planning to say is gonna?
Not yet, we're
Okay.
still working on that.
And I would hope that over time, we find a way not to put those on the shoulders of the farmers. So I mean, maybe when we have a slightly more mature industry and there's enough revenue coming in, I actually don't know how all the other crops work, but it seems very, those could be expensive for a small farmer. So I hope that we're looking at other ways of doing that.
And it could be, and I think Laura mentioned this in her presentation, that we do have to be a self-funded cash operation. So we're trying to figure this out. We're charging no more than what it's ultimately going to cost us
Sure.
to provide services. We're not, trying to make money out of this or anything like that. So, and over time, those fees could get adjusted one way or the other. But right now, it's our guess as to what it's going to cost us as a department to do the inspections, to do the testing.
And I think that what will again happen over time with some crop development at CSU and others is this will be a much more reliable practice where people just won't really have to worry about this as much as they might now. And I don't think that's more than a few years off, I would hope, so, no.
Mel Hilgenberg, Education Chair, the Larimer County Rocky Mountain Farmers Union. Question for Jared and probably for the other government representatives here. What discussion or talk is there to have a comprehensive WD-FAR 21st century kind of approach to water? Because I believe that if we did what our forefathers did, we could grow hemp, biofuels, clear up and down the Front Range, everything east of I-25. So water.
I'll go to the Department of Agriculture on that one. This is not good agriculture.
Well, sure, I guess, one of the things that proponents had talked about with hemp, and I know in talking to Samantha and others, was that it could or should use less water than other crops. And to the extent that happens, certainly, using less water here in Colorado is a good thing, given the demands that we have on water, and given the fact that over time, we're expecting the gap between the supply of water and demand for water to widen. So, to that extent, water is gonna be available to the landowner and whoever holds the property rights, just like it is, anyone else. And again, if it turns out to be a drought-resistant crop, given the problems we have here in Colorado with 17 to 21 inches of rain annually, that's in a good year. Not unlike the last couple of years where we've seen severe drought, particularly in the eastern and southeastern parts of Colorado, and particularly southeastern Colorado, which continues to be under fairly significant drought as well. Hemp could turn out to be, a pretty good deal in those areas, so we'll see.
Yes. Yes, sir. You talked about the 0.3%.
Sorry, who's the question directed to?
I'll start with Laura.
Okay.
How does a farmer control what percentage? If you plant the seed and it grows, how do you know whether, is it too much water, too much? What controls the percentage of THC?
The strain.
That's where the research needs to be directed.
You already got it done.
What Canada does is that they have a seed certification program, and so they have gone through the research and through development of those certified seed varieties. If a farmer chooses to grow those seed varieties, then they are not subject to testing. But we do not have that infrastructure built. And so at the beginning, that we will have to undergo testing. Forgive me for saying, but if you are wanting to get into this at the forefront, you are probably going to be the one having to participate in the research. whether you're choosing to do that on your own or whether it's because we're testing for you. You are contributing to the research, if I may say that, at the beginning.
And you're correct though in that there's gonna be a lot of variability because of weather, because of a variety of things. And, you know, the way it's set up, both, you know, Amendment 64 as well as legislatively, I mean, we're held to the strict 0.3%, in terms of the boundary.
I don't have a problem with that, it's
Yeah.
just how do I as a farmer control it?
Is this a way, Dr. Bush, maybe you can talk about this, is this an area where, in terms of the CSU, there could be something analogous to what Canada has with certain seeds that the state signs off on that they don't
Yeah,
do
I mean,
testing?
CSU certainly has the capacity to help develop that knowledge base. As I said, though, we have no footprint in this world right now. Canada has already developed this kind of research. So the certified seed comes out of breeding programs where they bred these, they know reproducibly what the percentage is, they certify that, that's how they can sell it.
So if I got certified seed from
If you
Canada.
got certified
it
seed
should
from
be less
Canada,
than
you would,
3%.
you would be within.
Or Germany,
I
or
really-
France,
I am
or
not
Italy, or
knowledgeable
Spain,
about what level
or
of
China.
seed diversity is available
You guys are trying to reinvent
from
the wheel.
America. You know, their breeding programs have not been active here since the early 1900s.
No, we just need free trade.
Well, I got something from Canada.
We got
To
the
answer your
seeds.
question, because it will change.
And
We
this
got
is
the
an important
knowledge.
question, so we actually have a couple other panelists who want to address that. I think Ryan, Eric, and Barbara all want to address that. Ryan, what did you want to share on that?
I did get some seed from Canada, and the THC content did change being down here in this environment. And I think, like you said, we're gonna have to work this out in the beginning where we can control that. We can test the seed in the beginning to give us a starting point, but then we're still gonna have to test the seed in July when it's, 110 degrees out. What's that THC gonna do when it's hot, hot? It's lacking some water. 'Cause I
By
think
that
it's gonna
time,
go
it's
up
too
a
late.
bit.
If it tests too high, you just wasted a
So
whole lot of
that's
time and
gonna-
money.
I think we're gonna have some issues with this. And as long as we can
That'll
find
kill farmers quicker
a
than
usable
anything.
source, which I believe is biodiesel, for that seed that tests high.
Why not go to Germany and just
at
learn
least we can
right
use
off the bat?
seed and not lose the crop, the farmer won't lose his crop.
Yeah.
So if we create biodiesel facilities regionally, and that's pretty inefficient to create biodiesel facilities, I mean, it's not. But I think it's an option.
Eric, do you want to comment on that one?
Yes, there's been some peer-reviewed research that's shown that the plants respond to ultraviolet radiation by increasing the amount of THC, so the higher altitude you're growing plants at has something to do with the THC content. So like Ryan was saying, it can go up based upon the amount of sunlight and the radiation intensity that we get here. So that's something to watch for. You might want to start with an extremely low THC crop, because there are crops that will test at 0.01 instead of 0.3, which is borderline, like canola, for example. So you might look at that when you're shopping for a certified seed variety.
Barbara?
My comment is there's 37 varieties that I've seen worldwide. They vary. I'm confused right now on, are we talking about a seed we're planting to produce seed, to plant a seed oil crop, a fiber crop, a herd producing crop? So depending on the variety, you will add a different THC level. And I find 0.3 to be very high. I don't think you're gonna have problems. That's a nice, back, in other countries, you're looking at 0.03, 0.02. So at 0.3.
No, it's 0.03.
Variety you're
Right?
planting is
0.03.
planting.
Oh, 0.3. That's very generous.
And as far as I wanted to address the water issue, when you are planting in permaculture and you are doing biodiverse crops, you have different root systems. And based on how our water is in Colorado, irrigation, and where the aquifers are, you can create very sustainable permaculture projects. And I'd like to know what seed we're talking about, where it's gonna come from, and are we talking about the residue? Because it could be residue, and it's just not seed because that was something.
And I think hopefully eventually where we want to go with the state, I would hope, is something analogous to what Canada has over time, where we can then, if you fall certain, if you're planting certain seeds, then you don't have to worry about the other stuff, but we're a few years away from that, I'm sure. And I don't know if that's something that would require new legislation, but it's probably a few years away, but I mean, I think the key point to you, if you're a farmer, is at this point, you're a partner in experimenting with the state. They're trying to figure it out, take a couple years, you can build in, and you might have a little extra overhead.
Experimentation costs money now.
Like the testing involved, you have to pay for, but it's, it's helping the state kind of develop what
That's where the
makes sense.
university should be
The trade-off
stepping in
is
with
you're
their
one of
grant
fewer
money that they
producers, so
already
I
have
mean,
money
once
to
it
do the
goes
research.
mass,
Why
there's
should
less
we pay?
profit
Why
potential,
should
so I think
industry
there's,
pay for the
greater
research?
risk and profit potential in the next couple of years on this one. We'll go back, I wanna go to first-time folks first, and then we'll go to second time, yes.
So I'm just following along with this, with
Who's your
Laura
question
and,
for? You wanna
Laura
direct-
and Ron.
Okay.
So after then it's been tested and say I grow a crop that's 0.4%. Now you're saying that there's options, but that was very vague and I don't understand kind of where that's headed.
You have, with your crop test at 0.4, you will not lose your registration. But as I said, we have this very clear line, this definition that is in the Constitution.
Right.
And
But then what
we-
happens to my crop? Do I cut it down and let it rot in the field?
Yes,
So there's
we
no-
have to work out a deal, but you cannot sell it.
We can't use it.
So no
But that's
biofuel
not,
or?
Biofuel.
that's what our right line.
But as has been indicated, there should be plenty of varieties that you can do where you're well south of that.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean there's not new varieties coming up that are gonna be different.
Absolutely, and this is all the stuff that's early stages and they're working on. But I mean, from your business perspective, I doubt you wanna experiment with one that might be right over the thing. You might wanna just play it safe here as they work on this. And then maybe they can work on, who knows what they're gonna work on in the future.
I mean, just to follow up as to why this is headed that way, is that she mentioned the bright line under the Amendment 64 of the Constitution. Anything over that line is marijuana by definition. And arguably, what we could have done is, at that point, simply turned it over to law enforcement or to the Department of Revenue and said, they've got marijuana here. We felt that the legislation gave us at least a little wiggle room to certainly not go so far as to suspend the registration or revoke the registration or keep you from registering next year. But there was that little issue about what you do with what you have.
Right.
And to allow that to be sold would, I think, would have been in direct contravention to both the amendment and the legislation. So we felt at least if we could save the registration and not go any further than that on that part of it, that's the best we could do.
What do you do if it's over 1%?
It's over 1%, we do not have any, deal for you.
What do you do if my crop comes in at over 1%, what will you do?
You would potentially lose your
And
registration,
you turn it over to law enforcement?
yes.
Yeah.
And they'll burn it, right?
Supreme
I'm sorry.
Court.
And they'll burn
You
it.
won't be
I
allowed to
don't
sell
know,
it. You won't be allowed to sell it.
It's,
The
I don't know what they
I
will
read it, it
do.
said it will be destroyed.
If it's over 1%,
Let's-
we can turn
Let's go
that
back
over.
to, I want to get people who haven't asked a question. Yes, in the back.
If you wanted to partner for research, how would you, in registering to do that, is that how you can import the seed? Because right now, there's difficulty getting the seed even from Canada or wherever.
Maybe, do you want to talk about, Ryan, about how you got your seed, and then if you have any,
No, you don't want to say. No self-incrimination.
So this is why it's so important that Representative Polis' amendment passes in the Farm Bill. What that does, that allows for research institutions in states where the barriers for industrial hemp production have been removed to go ahead and proceed with that research and development. So then that will open up a gateway for CSU, maybe UNC, or any of our other smaller ag schools, or even CU, the other small ag school. I'm just kidding.
It's not an ag school at all.
I know. It's a very small school. To partner up with farmers, to partner up with producers, to develop a program where they can develop the seed stock. I mean, we're in this sort of precarious situation where everything has to happen little bit of steps at a time. We are going to be, hopefully we can work on something where maybe, our congressmen or senators will allow for waivers for these states to import this seed at another time. In states that have, again, removed barriers for production. Again, this is all baby steps. Congressman fought a really hard fight just to get this one amendment in.
And I think we'll have the opportunity for domestic as in within Colorado seed production as well as we gear up.
That's where the money's
And
at.
that might not be the long
Obviously.
term once it opens up, but in the meantime,
The
I
guy
think
who
there'll be
makes
less
the seeds is
barriers to
gonna win the
acquiring
game.
seed within our state than from elsewhere. Considering especially that there's a patchwork of states that have it and that don't, and there's, you know, issues.
Barbara's got
with
it too.
which states have it
She's
and
been
which
saying
don't.
it all along.
Yes, go ahead.
I just had two general questions. I'm a complete layman when it
Who
comes to.
do you want to hear this for? Who they for?
But, well, they're general questions. I'm not sure who to direct them to. But one is just curiosity. I wonder how many industrial hemp crops per year a typical farmer could produce. Is it just limited to one or not? And the other question is, it's been mentioned a couple times, but I'm just wondering what the potential for biofuel, biodiesel. I heard one time on a radio station, I don't know if this person knew what they were talking about, but they said that hemp was 5 times as efficient as corn in producing an ethanol kind of substance.
Why don't we go to Ryan and Eric? Ryan on the first part of the question, then Eric on the second of it. Ryan?
Yeah, you know, we could definitely make biodiesel, you know, out of the seed, you know, and then you're left with a seed cake that can be used to feed livestock or ground. You know, this THC might be a great avenue for seed like that. Then it could be used, if we can't sell it, then we could at least use it on the farm. And that would save a lot of money just by using it on fuel. So, you know, and then you could feed the seed cake to your own livestock, you know, potentially, you know, all these little nuances we could definitely work out.
Eric, do you want to address that?
Sure. One problem with using the seed oil as fuel is that it's worth about $30 a gallon.
Yeah.
So you might be better off selling
Using
that
French
and buying
fryer oil.
regular diesel. I don't know.
We can't sell it though.
Mhm.
Yeah, you can't sell it. Another thing about the cellulosic ethanol that you were referring to, the probably world leader in that research is at NREL in Golden. And I have a friend who graduated from the School of Mines that's been working there for about 6 years, and they're looking at particular types of bacteria to digest the
Enzymes.
cellulose and turn it into a sugar that can be fermented.
I
The
got
main
that
problem
too.
is that they have other chemicals that are fermented by the bacteria, including acetone and butanol, and there's a separation process that's very energy intensive. So it's going to be a while before that is competitive with making it from starch, such as corn.
So just one crop a year, you said?
Oh, if you
Here?
have a monoecious cultivar that's auto-flowering, like the kind we're working with, it's maybe possible that you could squeeze in 2 crops, but you'd have to be very lucky to not get a late frost when you
Well,
plant
also,
early.
these are the kinds of things that we expect with crop development that would be routine within 5 or 10 years. I mean, there's significant upgrades to the crop, so I would hope that that would be something that would be achievable through ag tech and CSU. Yeah.
3 crops in a greenhouse. 3 a year. At least. That technology is not new either.
Tax incentives for building the infrastructure, for the buildings, for bringing in the equipment. If we do go to Byro, for logistics, will there be any tax incentive to welcome entrepreneurs into the state to build these infrastructures in which we need the farmers to have to get rid of the crops? I can't really answer that.
Yeah,
Like any other business that,
definitely, we've been doing some outreach with CCI and other counties about, what can the state legislature do for these counties? That some of them that do have actually a pretty sound infrastructure in place. For example, Adams County. Adams County has a really great balance of agriculture and then a lot of processing and manufacturing facilities that, due to recent economic downturns, happen to be empty right now, but can be easily retrofitted with the right kind of capital investment for hemp production and hemp manufacturing. So Adams County is actually going to be hosting a similar panel. It's going to be more directed towards economic investments and the kinds of things that you're speaking of. But that's one of the solutions we're looking at, is we're trying to make it more localized. We're trying to speak with we're trying to go right to the source. So how Governor Hickenlooper had his listening tour around the state, a few years ago, where the idea being, how do you build this economy from the ground up? So it's gonna be similar to that, we're gonna work with these localities, these counties, and we're gonna say, how do you build this from the ground up, What kind of infrastructure help do you need? What kind of incentive can the legislature work with these counties to offer to these manufacturing and producing companies? So that's definitely something we're looking into.
Unfortunately, Adams County does have a ban on hemp, just so everyone does know for next year.
I don't think we have a ban on hemp, they have a ban on marijuana.
According to the Adams County Commissioner, there is a ban on hemp and
We'll
marijuana.
work on that all.
I
want to also, before we continue, I want to thank our staff and help put this together. Mark, Rosie, Richard, as well, so.
Yes, my question is for Barbara, and thank you for coming. I wanted to find out more about your culling equipment, and is that being developed in Colorado as well?
No, what we did is, seeing the future here, right now the US is giving incentive for imports of machinery. It's duty free. And I also own a trading company planning ahead for this in order to help support our state. So right now, and before this ends, for our farmers, the most cost-effective way to be profitable with the least investment in infrastructure is seed oil, food grade, because Fukushima happened. And when Fukushima happened, the deep sea fish oil, which our largest market right now is to sell back to China. And they don't have deep sea fish oil. And the hemp oil is what
She's just handing everyone $1 billion idea.
But if we don't get it right,
Broner's
they
guy
will.
should go home with that one right now.
The World Trade Organization,
Stop putting this shit in
we have an
shampoo.
opportunity now to sell back to China, where they also have a great need for composite. And so the infrastructure for this is in Colorado already. We just have to grow the right crop, process it correctly, disperse the burden so it's not on the farmer, and the goal here is to create jobs and satisfy our market and the markets that are demanding
You
product.
need to get her with these two, the Department of Ag. These two don't know fucking jack shit.
Well, and it's great to have, again, and you have Representative Fisher and me and others, and I think you have a very favorable, obviously, electorate, general election. So you have a state that really wants to be on the forefront of this, and I think we just have to make sure all the parts are in place, the research side from CSU, the regulatory side, the infrastructure side, and this can be an enormous job creation vehicle for our state when this all comes together. Yes?
Thank you. So I had a question about hemp-derived cannabidiol, or cannabidiol rather. I recently read an article that stated that a 1% CBD plant is a very good source of CBD, which is non-psychoactive, highly medicinal. And I was wondering, I'm not sure who this is directed to, but it's a two-part question. If there would be any opportunity to harvest minor cannabinoid compounds other than THC from the hemp harvest in the state, and if not, would there be any assurance to farmers that federal authorities wouldn't come in and say, hey, you have a 1% CBD crop, so we're going to eradicate it, or you have a 0.5% tetrahydrocannabidiol, so we're going to eradicate your crop. Do you have any
You're not
assurance to
gonna
farmers?
see THC in the right variety that you're planting. And when you say CBD, that's like saying eat an apple a day, keep the doctor away. Which kind of apple? Because CBD is a category, and both industrial hemp and medical marijuana have CBD, but under CBD, it's science. So you're not going to have a level of THC. Over my experience worldwide, the THC is really the residue from not cleaning it correctly.
In industrial hemp, yeah.
If you're talking industrial hemp.
I mean, you want to address this as well, Eric? I mean, yeah.
Yes, so the feds have been somewhat wishy-washy on CBD. They have come up with a new designation under the DEA guidelines for marijuana concentrates, but they didn't specifically address CBD. The
CBD is
National
legal.
Institutes of Health have licensed
5
their
years ago.
CBD patent, which is sometimes referred to as the 507 patent, to Canada Life Sciences, which is a medical marijuana company. So they're trying to play both sides of the fence here. They know it's not psychoactive. They might come down on one company because they're not benefiting from that company. I mean, it's all very political, and there's really no scientific way to answer the question.
Okay.
Well, I have a question that might address everything we've just been talking about here, and it's addressed to you, Congressman Polis. We're talking about things like high CBDs. You know about Charlotte's Web. It's a medicinal marijuana that has an incredibly low THC and very, very high CBDs. We're going to be seeing crosses between these things. We're going to be raising all kinds of them. We talk about just our 0.3%. They're going to be getting different things, especially when they start to cross with all the wild stuff growing around. A slight aside, in Idaho, not recently here, they make their own guns. And the feds have nothing to do with it because it's all within the state. What I would ask you, Congressman Polis, is what bearing does the 9th and 10th Amendment have upon us here in Colorado if we're going to do things our own selves and keep it all within the state?
I personally advocate the federal level, giving the state the discretion to figure out exactly where the line is drawn. I think what the voters of the state did in Amendment 64 are very clear. They wanted to regulate marijuana like alcohol, and they wanted to have hemp looked after like an industrial crop. So there's always your question of where you draw the line. I think that the state can do that in a thoughtful way. I think where people want is if you're growing something that is used in a way that is mind-altering like alcohol, you look at it one way. If it's used for clothing or a health food product, it's a totally different thing.
Or medicine.
Well,
That's
you know, again,
now.
medicine, or is it something that has any type of psychoactive result? These are issues for, you know, I'm happy to give the state, you know, the state should have discretion in. I mean, I think federally, we have side effort. I mean, so there is one effort on industrial hemp. We won a victory, totally separate issue. I also am the sponsor of House Bill 499, which is basically regulate marijuana like alcohol bill. So that would be very different than hemp. I mean, this is a controlled substance. Minors can't consume it, all of those things. I think we should do both, but particularly with hemp, you know, I think the state has a great opportunity to move forward here with this. And there's no easy answers on the other side. I mean, you know, many areas won't want dispensaries, some will, and you know, we all want to keep it out of minors. There's no easy answers for that stuff. But industrial hemp should be an easy. We should be great job creation vehicle here in Colorado. Representative Fisher.
Could you describe what chances you give the Farm Bill actually getting out of Congress in the near future?
Pretty good. The biggest contentious issues are actually not around anything close to this industrial hemp. It's around the food stamp program. So I mean, I don't want to underrate it. That is a big issue. Namely, there are enormous funding level differences between where the Democrats and the Republicans are. But presumably, that would be settled as part of these budget negotiations that are occurring, which would allow the rest of the Farm Bill, which, you know, there's other things that are controversy around dairy and around other things, but nothing that would hold it back. So as long as we can settle the funding level for food stamps, which has to essentially be settled as part of the budget process, I would be highly optimistic it will move forward. So I mean, I would say 75% chance that this will happen in the next few months.
Hemp is good for food stamps.
And if within that,
Put the money in the coffer.
overwhelming likelihood it'll contain the favorable language.
Funny how they link food stamps to the Department of Ag.
90% plus they will include that. You know, again, there's lots of things people are watching
Supports
the bill,
people
and
in
some
the
are
world
still
of
moving
farmers.
parts, and there's other things I was involved with, like trying to have more of a market-oriented system for dairy pricing, and a million different things people have in there. But this one is likely to stay as long as the Farm Bill can be renewed. If it isn't, what happens is there's likely what we call a continuing resolution. The old Farm Bills continue. Nothing happens legally with regard to industrialized hemp, sadly, but there's another bite at the apple, you know, whenever this is drawn out in 6 months or 9 months or a year. So I mean, I think it's a matter of
you know, not if, but when, ultimately Congress has to move on to something. Yes?
Yeah, I'm really curious what your take is on the Industrial Hemp Farming Act. I know that the Farm Bill has a hemp amendment in it that is more geared towards universities, but I think we as a country should understand that the best act that Congress could pass is the act to get Congress out of the way of a hempful future and people being able to have legitimate conversations among shareholders about investments, about infrastructure and all this. I'm just curious, who do you see taking the leadership role in Congress to carry this forward?
Well, I'm an original sponsor of the Industrial Hemp Act, and I think that's a logical next step to move in that direction. The truth is that individuals are willing to take on a little more risk than, let's say, universities or research institutions that are federally funded. So many individuals, farmers and others, are fine with basically the federal government prosecutor saying you're fine with this, which is basically what they've said. You're fine doing this, even though technically they could go after people. Many individuals and investors even are fine going forward. But publicly funded entities are a little bit more cautious, and that's why we hope we clarify that. Ultimately, we would love to remove any overhang or threat from even the private sector or the public sector. So the first step, remove it from those who are very cautious, and then later on remove it from, I mean, look, so I mean, Ryan faced this. I think he was, you know, courageous for what he did. I don't think, you know, I like to reassure, I mean, as long as he's doing everything right, I don't see any likelihood of him facing trouble, but go ahead.
What I was gonna say though is on the notes is, Bennett and Udall could co-sponsor, House Resolution 525.
Well, they would do the Senate.
Senate version, yeah. So,
Has it been introduced in the Senate too, the Industrial
so
Hemp Act?
they actually need to call, we need to call those guys, I stopped in the office, we were in there in Washington.
And encourage your other representatives from Colorado to co-sponsor too. We need more co-sponsors of the Industrial Hemp Act. I think, again, it's a logical next step as we set up this infrastructure, as we clear any doubt on the public side and the research side and the university side, which I hope we can do right away through the Farm Bill. The next step would be to remove, you know, anything else that gets in the way.
Yeah, especially with the whole issue of access to seed, people not being sure where they're gonna be able to get seed.
Absolutely.
We're a landlocked state, you know, we need the Fed completely out of sight, so we don't have anything to worry about.
It's also a very important reason that the work of the Colorado Department of Agriculture, the Kentucky Department of Agriculture, their work is so important. It's so vital that we get this right in our states that are moving forward to increase confidence nationally, so that it's very easy then to go on to that next step of the Industrial Hemp Act, which could be a few years from passing. But remember, we won the vote on the floor of the House with regard to clearing any doubt about research and public universities and others doing research in industrial hemp. So that would be, the House has spoken its will. I think if we can pass the Farm Bill, it'll be both bodies, it'll be law. But that was a good test vote, knowing we can have victories for these things on the floor of the House. And the next logical step would be the Industrial Hemp Act. Yes?
I have a question for Department of Agriculture and Ryan. Backing into the designation of industrial hemp, is that based strictly on the THC level? Yes. So the high CBD plant he's talking about that they grow at the realm of carrying the Charlotte's Web?
Yeah, we won't be looking at CBD, we're gonna be testing THC.
So you could grow that particular strain even though it's not really considered hemp, it's considered cannabis.
If
But
the
the
THC
THC
level is 0.3 or less.
So, okay, and then Ryan, did they test your crop?
No, I did personally.
You did personally, and what were your THC levels
Oh,
like?
it varied between each cultivar for sure.
They varied a lot?
Yeah, I had 5 different countries of seeds going, so.
How many of them were over the limit of 0.3? Based out of those different,
Yeah,
most
there's
of them?
a few of them, yeah, there's a few of them.
So there's still a lot of,
Yeah, you know, it's just, we don't know how they're gonna react down here in Colorado.
I've got
But they were very high, they were very much, one.
right.
So we're just gonna
right,
have two
okay.
more questions, but before we get to them, nobody's asked poor Eric a question here. I wanted him to talk about consumer product opportunities with hemp, which he has a few fun things here on his table. I want to give him another minute or two to talk about some great consumer product opportunities, then we'll go back to the last 2 questions. Eric?
You got a question?
Eric, what's better, hold or not hold hemp seeds?
Which are better?
Yeah, for you.
Oh.
I say hold.
two opinions to that, but, yeah.
Just like some.
But yeah, I think Jerry just wanted to touch base just upon
Greek
the
teacher
optimism of
used
this
to get him as a
movement,
child
and that this
roasted.
movement is happening, that people are getting aware around the country, that people are seeking out and asking for these products, that people have interest in these products. And there is already a huge market that's sitting there that no one's tapping into. We are on the forefront here in Colorado. We do need to shake out a lot of details, but I think the rewards could be great for those like Ryan that take the risk and are willing to put themselves out intellectually and say, you know, enough's enough. I think we've seen this with the cannabis movement here too. We hear it all over the country that, you know, right up to the UN that wants to stop this movement, but the people are dictating this movement. People are aware. People are becoming awake. People are getting together, and we're making change. So I hope that continues.
Yeah, oh, it will.
Great.
Absolutely.
Couple more, who else has something that they feel a burning desire to ask of our panel? Keep in mind, many of them will be able to stay afterwards. So 1, 2, good. We'll end on those 2. So go ahead.
Quickly, when and where is the next industrial hemp forum?
We would love to plan another one. I think, did you mention there's one in Adams County? I'm
Yeah,
not knowing
Adams
that
County,
one.
I'm working with their county commissioners and hosting one, hopefully within the next few weeks.
Okay. You don't have a date and time yet?
Not yet.
Okay. And they can find that out by looking at the Adams County Commissioner's website?
Yes.
We will probably do another one in a few months. We did one in Fort Collins. We'll probably do one in Boulder, another part of our district.
I'm
in
gonna
March
get
or
her
April.
with
I would
the
suspect
Department of
that will be
Ag and
the next one
Polis.
we're
The
involved
rest
in.
they're gonna take it from
Our office will put together, so we'll do one in Boulder in March or April, Adams County sooner. So those are the things going on. Yes?
My question is actually for you, Jared. And I want to put an exclamation first, then I'll ask the question. But my understanding is, from what I've heard here, we don't have a lot of seed here. We may not even have enough seed to plant a section, much less any wide scale. And the seed that has been procured has been illegally smuggled in here. And from this small amount, we're supposed to create an industry? Now we're remaking the wheel. You say Canada already has a program. They have viable seed that meets the criteria. What is the possibility of you having, you meet with the executive branch and having the DEA escort a couple of semi-loads of Canadian seed down here? We can hit this all in the bud.
I'll definitely address this. I wanted Barbara to answer this, and if anybody else, and then I'll
I want to know how the USDA BioPreferred certified me to be the first hemp supplier since the banning under a non-manufacturer's waiver. How can you help me, Congressman Polis? I'm allowed to import hemp.
But it's not seeds though, right? Viable
Well,
seeds?
we're gonna push it.
Okay.
If I'm in 57.
Well, and that's a question, is how much discretion the
Yeah.
executive has under current
Order
law.
on those.
We're happy to look into it. I think that much of this requires a lot of legal change, which is why you have to come back to Congress. Certainly, if based on our analysis, the executive branch has the authority, we would encourage them to do a waiver or whatever they could to get approved high-quality, low THC seed in. I don't know if they have that authority. In the meantime, domestic seed production is critical. That's why CSU's role will be critical, and the research side will be critical. And then, of course, that's why we need to pass the overall Industrial Hemp Act. But in the meantime, while these kinds of protectionist measures are never good in the long run, this will give us a little space to develop a domestic seed production industry, which I think is good to have. So,
First of all, these guys here.
right, it's bad for the industry in the short term,
That's a group.
but it's good for it in
Yeah,
the
knuckle
medium
cancer.
term.
It's bad for Canada.
But
Yeah.
Import seed stuff.
So, again,
I'm
our
sure he's
panels will
fine.
be around for a few minutes afterwards, as will I. We hope that a lot of great
Where's this
ideas
from?
comes out of this.
Oh.
A lot of great economic opportunity, jobs, health with the product, reducing our trade deficit, and hopefully unleashing the creativity of the American people in terms of consumer products and other things that we're able to do with jobs for farmers and processors. So thanks for taking the first step and showing your interest in industrial hemp here today. We'll obviously keep you notified about future forums, Adams County, Boulder, coming up, and you're welcome to talk to any of our panelists here and read Eric's small print up there as well. So, thank you for joining us.